It's been a brutal week for Canada's marijuana companies. The country's largest are reporting multi-million-dollar losses, missed expectations, weaker forecasts, and they've scrapped plans to expand. Many of them blame the bad spell on certain regulatory regimes. Here's a look at how some provinces operate their legal marijuana markets. Alberta offers a mix of private and public sales. There are more than 300 retail stores there, by far the most of any jurisdiction. And in the first 8 months of legalization, Alberta was Canada's top cannabis market with $123 million in sales. There's also a mixed model in Ontario, but while it has 3 times the population of Alberta, it only has allowed 25 pot shops to operate so far. Following complaints from the industry and consumers, the provincial government is in the process of opening up the market with more stores and looser rules. Nova Scotia, meanwhile, controls all its sales, and it built most of its cannabis outlets in existing liquor stores. The province's liquor board reported second quarter sales of $203 million, up almost 12% from last year, quote, primarily due to cannabis. Then there's New Brunswick. Its government also controls the market, but at a financial loss, so it's looking for a private operator to take over. How much are the provinces affecting the performance of Canada's marijuana industry? Craig Wiggins is the managing director of The Catalyst, a subscription-based website focusing on the cannabis industry and publicly traded cannabis companies. He joins us now from Windsor, Ontario. Hi, Mr. Wiggins. Nice to see you. Thanks for making time.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask you a bit of a general question to start off, and that is around the state of the industry. We rattled off some of the statistics earlier there. How bad is it now compared to what the expectations might have been prior to legalization, a bit over a year ago?
Well, I don't think anybody in their right mind would have thought at this point that Ontario would only have 24 stores open for the market. So when you build your business and your business model thinking that you will have access to distribution channels and the biggest market in Canada gets choked off from you, the results really show that. The results show that the access to some of the bigger markets, and Quebec's another one with only 20 stores. So it isn't surprising given the lack of retail infrastructure.
How much does the sort of different regulatory regimes as they exist across the country, the patchwork of those regulatory regimes, how much in your assessment has it impacted the industry?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily the patchwork that's impacted. It's the political will to get things done. Economically speaking, just looking at Ontario, they have 110 out of the 220 licensed producers are in Ontario. So you'd think that the Ontario government would be very incentivized to open up stores. And we've had enough inventory all year. The only month that we had under 400 days of inventory at the licensed producers was March, and we're presently at 847 days of inventory at the end of August. So there isn't an inventory problem by the quantity of inventory. We could always argue quality of inventory, but at the end of the day, there has to be a political will to get this done, and it's hard to understand a Conservative government in Ontario that has decided to forego brand new voluntary tax streams when they're in the midst of cutting back education budgets.
Well, just to quickly say that we've just interviewed the minister and done a whole segment on this, and they insist that they're not cutting those budgets, but I take your point. If it is a story about political will, what is impeding it, do you think?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm a economic and data freak, and I could only surmise that in Ontario, there just hasn't been the political will to get it done. In Quebec, it's a little different. Quebec had a new government come in. They didn't like the home grow. They didn't like the edibles dosage. They didn't like the age, and they've increased that. Ontario is a bit of a different beast. Ontario has the most to gain and the most to lose.
How much of the onus should be placed on producers? And did they overestimate, for example, the growth potential of the market, given the political complications that were certain to exist to a certain degree, at least?
I think there was a lot of very joyous pitch decks that went out to investors. A lot of pitch decks required everything to work out absolutely perfectly. And I don't think anyone realized that we are going to be producing by the end of this year in the legal market enough to satisfy the total addressable market, whereas we're only selling 20%, we've only displaced 20% of the illicit market.
So what has to happen going forward for this to be, something that doesn't end up being permanent?
Well, there's no single silver bullet. We do need more access to retail stores. We do need the ability to offer the formats that are available in the illicit market. We do need quality to improve drastically, and we do need price to go down. On the price side, I think someone just did the math on the BC side. Out of every dollar spent, 44 cents goes into political coffers. It's a story of the government got in there and tried to milk the cow before it was ready.
What if you look at the different provinces, the various provinces, and how it's worked out in each of them? Obviously, you've highlighted Ontario already. Where is it working out, or is there a province that you think it's working out in?
I think Alberta has led the way in getting retail stores out. They were, at one point, they had a moratorium. I think it was till about April of this year. And then when they were satisfied there was enough product in the pipeline, they were opening up 10 stores a month. Medicine Hat, who has, I think, 63,000 in population, has 12 stores. That's half of what Ontario has. Saskatchewan, I think, is doing a commendable job because they actually are one of the only provinces that don't actually touch the product. There isn't a central wholesale in Saskatchewan. The licensed producers ship directly to retail, and the government of Saskatchewan takes a 6% skim. So that's a nice, effective way of being able to scale the market quickly. And that's what Ontario needs. That's what Quebec needs. Will they go that way? It's been a waiting game. It's been a waiting game in Ontario since the Ford government came in with deciding to go onto the private model with 25 lottery-based stores, of which we only opened 24.
They have indicated, though, that they might be looking to change up the mix a bit and open the market up a bit more. Have you heard any indications from people you speak with about the possibility of that? Any level of optimism?
They're in discussions. Problem is, they've been in discussions for a very long time.
Sounds like government. Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Wiggins. I'll leave it there. Craig Wiggins, Managing Director of The Canalys, coming to us from Windsor. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.